Hello, y'all. We're back. Hello, foodies. We're back for another episode of the Bigger Than Food podcast. My name is Apollo Woods. I'm your host of the Bigger Than Food podcast. I feel like I say this every week. Every week, I always talk about we have some amazing guests that we're going to talk about food and their backgrounds and their influences and all that good stuff. But this person, I think you will remember. Back in a couple years back, I did this series of brunches called Sunday Social Brunch. But we brought the Sunday brunch vibes to Oklahoma City. We did a great job for a number of years. So I'm going to share with you a little bit of a teaser so you know exactly who I'm talking about, because this person brought the house down for Sunday Social Brunch. So I'm a show you the video, and I want you to see, remind yourself of who I'm talking to, because he did the thing. As soon as I can get this video going, and then we will get this thing happening. All right, here we go. I think I want to show me time screen. Close tab. Give me 1 second, y'all. All right, that's enough. That's enough. That's enough. That's enough. That's all y'all get. That's enough. That's enough. That's enough. That's enough, y'all. That's enough. All right, bring it on to episode 15. My kinfolk from the hometown, Duncan, Oklahoma, Jeremy Jackson. Welcome to the Bigger Than Food podcast. If I had all the other sound effects going on right now, I give you a bunch of applause and all that, but we're going to do it all for ourselves, man. Welcome to the podcast, kinfolk.
Thank you for having me, Mr. Woods. Thank you so much, sir.
Look at man, look, don't make that formal, like we family. Like we real kinfolk. Like folks that don't know, we are real.
Long as we don't trade nicknames, I ain't gonna call you yours. Don't call me mine.
No.
Nah, we are
now. We grown
for sure. Nah, but we are for real kinfolk. Same bloodline. Got the same blood. For real.
Born and raised in Duncan, America, in Stevens County. So, for those of y'all who just really don't know, I've definitely grew up together in Duncan family and all that, and so seeing you evolve and grow. So I wanted to bring you on the podcast to talk about not just your journey in music, let's talk about ministry, your background, and all those things, and just to let people understand, as a person who is from Oklahoma, traveled around the world in music, and music is your ministry, and now you're in Texas. So there's a journey in there. So those who know, and maybe those who don't know, tell them who you are, and not what you do, but tell people who you are. Who is Jeremy?
Yeah. Well, again, firstly, thanks for having me. But yeah, man. So Jeremy, man, to sum me up, I really am just a bridge. I am a bridge that connects people from where they are to where they're trying to be. From the if religious side, if you are here and you're trying to get closer to God, I can be a bridge to help you get there. If you are in need of a friend, if you're in need of coaching, I can help you get there. I'm just a bridge. Overall, it's the best way to capsulize who I am. Bridges kind of do the dirty work. You know what I mean? We serve. Bridges just kind of they exist to get you from one place to the next. So that's me in totality. From music to ministry to preaching to teaching. But the whole piece of it is just a bridge. That's the best way I put it.
Okay, I know he's just warming up, so he's giving you the the Jeremy Jackson, the polished version of
Right.
himself. But when you start warming up, we'll get there. So,
Oh, yes,
um,
indeed.
like I've just
Sure.
just known each other all our lives, man. So,
Right.
what role when you think about like your family, immediate family, and music and influence of
Hmm.
music?
Hmm.
How did music influence you? Like, where would you say some of your earliest memories of how music inspired you? Like, what were those early days where you remember? Like,
Yeah,
do you remember the moment where like music just felt like it's just in you? Do you remember those
absolutely.
early moments?
Yeah. Again, back to your point, growing up in Duncan, Big Mama would have, they would have these wild onion and egg parties, if you will, where the family would come in and Aunt Marie, you look up and Aunt Marie come, and here you look up, you might see Aunt Malady, and you might see Aunt Ada. Then all of her cousins from Lawton would show up, and generally what would happen is they would sit up, trade stories, and we're talking, 30, 40 people, adults and kids everywhere. But then they would get to singing, and they would always strike out with old hymns and things like that. So hearing that, all throughout your life, you're just surrounded by music, and all of our families, when they come together, and Duncan being so small, 3 o'clock programs, most of the family was in the choir, or so music was everywhere around, particularly gospel music. But then also, my mom and my dad, they would have domino parties, and they would have spade parties, and it'd be none but family, and music is constantly playing. So yeah, I would always hear it, but it wasn't until I was about 9 years old. My grandmother was a musician for 30, 40 years for one church. And all my life, she played piano, all at funerals, everything like that. And my brother played piano. And so I always wanted to learn, but nobody would teach me. So around about 9 years old, I snuck away and got on my brother's keyboard, and I just started tapping and trying to figure out how to play and learn. And so once he figured that part of it out, put the keyboard up where I couldn't get it. So we had an old broken piano in the garage, and it would sit this way, like it kind of at a tilt. And that literally is where I started literally playing, was in the garage on a tilted keyboard with broken keys. That's where I honed my craft from 9 until where we are today.
Okay, we got to go back as you mentioned the choir. So I don't think people realize
For real.
the choir in Duncan. In
Woo!
my early days, I was in the choir. In my early
Come
days,
on,
in my
Antioch
early
Baptist
days
Church, baby.
at St. Stephen's, and then a
Antioch
little
and
bit
St.
when we moved over
Stephen's.
to Antioch. But I just want to paint the
Hmm.
picture on
Ooh.
on the competitiveness of church choir in Duncan, Oklahoma, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, full-fledged
you had
gangbanger.
so my grandmother co-founded a church, Church of the Living God,
Church of the Living
Ground in the
God,
Truth, right?
PGT, yes sir.
PGT.
Hmm.
So we kind of go visit that church a little bit, but then my home church where I got baptized was St.
St.
Stephen's,
Stephen's, yep.
and then you had Antioch, and then you had Jones Chapel.
Jones Chapel.
Yeah, Jones Chapel. Those are really the three for me.
Yep,
Those were the three churches, and I'm talking about some good old competition. It
for sure.
was who could sing all the Kirk Franklin songs.
You better believe it. And Jones Chapel, and it's the truth, because it was innate in the
Yep.
culture in the 80s. Oh
Man,
man, firstly, St. Stephen's, and this is when everybody was going to church. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? So
yeah.
St. Stephen's choir stand was full, but Antioch had this TV show church. It's perfectly built. They had the perfect choir robes. The
Uh,
the stands is full. They got like 60 people. They were blowing, but then you had Word of Life or Jones Chapel.
mm-hmm.
They was the Kojic church, so they had all the energy and singing all. They had, matter of fact, they had to step up in the game because the Baptist churches wouldn't let you have drums, and the Holiness Church had drums before everybody else did. So they was,
Yeah.
you know, yeah, it was a lot of gangbanging going on.
But I think it was. It really was, man. It really was.
Sheesh.
So that we spent a lot of time at 3 o'clock church. After church, you go down and get your grandma's house. So we went down
Yes.
to 207 Sycamore to my
Aunt
grandma's
Marie's
house.
house, your
Then
grandma's
you
house.
had
Yep.
about 1:30 or 2 o'clock. As a young person, you only had a little bit of time to go
Man.
and try to play basketball at Douglas.
Right.
Trying to get on one of the teams and watching
Right.
John Drew, Willie Cub, and all them, and Rudy and them play
Mm-hmm.
basketball before you had to
Mm-hmm.
go back to church, whether you had to sing in the choir or you wearing them usher robes. So we had the
Hey.
dashiki usher robes. But what was beautiful
Shoot.
about that back then was a sense of community.
Correct.
So there were
All
some
day.
things that we all found like harmony in was music and food. And you can go
Right.
find
Right.
something to eat or there's a song playing or something around that time. So like,
Right.
when you think about your childhood growing up, how did that community of music and culture and food
Mm-hmm.
um, give you that or influence you
Mm-hmm.
in the singer-songwriter that you are today?
Very simply, man, it gave me the ingredients. It gave me the secret sauce. Um, because what would happen in those circles is very quickly, if you could sing or like you had your Emmas, you had like my Aunt Tanya would sing, or you would have just different people, Diane Rochelle. When you seen the community how they responded to certain songs, you knew to learn those certain songs. And then when you saw how those songs were displayed and performed, you learned from that. So you really learned the secret sauce of singing the songs that connect to people. And that's what I picked up on. And to this day, I sing those songs that I seen and heard sung in the community, which gave me the secret sauce on how to connect to people of every generation.
Do you think that's like the uniqueness of um, African culture? Do you think that being able to connect to
Hmm.
music through storytelling
Hmm.
and song and how we
Hmm.
respond to music is what makes the cultural experience, um, what's the word? You know what? I'll phrase it this way. You think in connecting that to, let's say, brunch, you think
Right.
that connection to music and soulfulness and history of music and culture and the connection to brunch is happenstance, or that's just kind of what we do?
I think it's who we are. I think it's just the nature of who we are because music, I mean, food for us is it's ceremonial. When we get good food, we bond. And when we bond, there has to be a soundtrack. So
Mm-hmm.
there's not one without the other. That's why our church is different. That's why our brunches are literally full-fledged experiences
Mm-hmm.
because of those ingredients. 100% all day.
Yeah. Yeah. I just want to talk a little bit more about just your journey in music.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
what did more than just like not your favorite song or nothing like that, but when did you realize that music was a part of your purpose journey? It's not
Yeah.
just to learn a song, not just to play it, but when did you recognize that music does something more than just you learning an instrument or singing a song or writing a song? When did you feel like, I think this can be transformative in your personal journey?
Sure. So honestly, I was about 15, 16 years old. And I never would forget, um, going through your growing pains as a teenager. But I had experienced some very deep emotional things that were happening in my life. Stuff with my father, stuff with my family dynamic, and just some brokenness, heartbreaking stuff. And I didn't understand what I was doing, but I found myself sitting at the piano in the den, and I would just play for hours, 7, 8, 9 hours at a time. And I would, and just different things would come to me as I'm playing different. And the funny thing is that every time I walked away from getting off that piano, I felt lighter, I felt clearer, I felt like at that point I said, there's something deeper going on with music with me than I realized. And it was then. So I was probably like 15, 16. And from that point till now, music has been that that part of life for me. That's why it emulates when that's how it comes across on stage, because it takes me into a place that's deeper than what people can see.
Yeah, I think that's I think when you find that moment in where you're able to connect this talent that you have and you
Hmm.
see how people respond to it,
Hmm.
And you've kind of referenced this a bit with in your person, like in how you've grown in your own personal
Hmm.
journey. But for you personally, what do you feel? What do you believe that um, your skill, your your love for music has changed you for the better?
Um, I, I I feel like, as far as how it has changed me for the better is from, like we talked about the journey. Um, started preaching. I was 16, 17 years old, and I started preaching, and I preached everywhere. Just about everywhere. But music was that piece that shaped it. You know what I mean? And it wasn't just gospel. It was it was music. It wasn't gospel music only. It was gospel. It was R&B. It was rock songs, and all of that helped to shape and mold me as a person
Yeah.
because I wasn't one dimensional. You know.
And we talked about this. We talked about this offline.
Hmm.
So how did you learn to navigate the two? Because in the church, you would say like, you're in the secular world, you're doing this. In
Right.
the church, or Christians or
Right.
religious folks, they want you to choose a thing
Hmm.
versus the other thing. Because if you're doing the
Right.
other thing, you're outside the church, and if you're over here, it's something different. So how did you? And maybe it's something you're still working on. Like, how did
Hmm.
you learn to balance for your own purpose? Balance. I'm I'm preaching, I'm teaching, I'm discipling, but I'm
Hmm.
also, you got some of the most packed, exciting Sunday brunches
Absolutely.
experiences in the Dallas area.
Hmm.
How are you navigating that in the midst of the judgment that you might get from other people for your decision?
Well, it took me it took me a long time. It took me a while to understand duality, because when I was younger, I was just like how a lot of the older saints thought that you could only be stuck to one thing, period. Only either only what you do for Christ will last, what they would say, and they would say, well, you can't sing this and one foot in, one foot out. But it wasn't until it took me years, almost 10, 12, almost 15 years to really just accept the fact that duality exists. And it was when I embraced it, because this is what I was finding that was happening. God was opening doors for me to preach on one hand, and at the same time singing at weddings, or same time singing at a reception, and sometimes more on the secular end than on the other. And it was then when I realized I'm not crazy. God is opening up these doors, and then it dawned on me that God is love. So if this R&B music is talking about love, and it's talking about God and the principles that he stands for, then God is love music. From that point on, I just started embracing the duality of it.
Yeah. So I want to tap more into this, like in the performance side of things.
Hmm.
So, do you remember the first time you performed live at brunch? Where was
And
that?
yours?
No, no, not mine. Just period. Just period.
Period.
You remember the first time you performed with your either with solo or with a band? Do you remember your first time performing at brunch?
Let me draw back. Ooh, that's been a long
Maybe not the
time.
first time. What's the most memorable experience
Okay.
that you can
There
say
we
like
go.
this is a moment I remember performing at brunch?
Light bulb moment. Honestly, just this is just the real. It was when you did your Sunday social brunches in Oklahoma City. That one that you did, and I came up, and the one you showed the little clips of. That one was not just the most memorable brunch, but it was pivotal.
Mm,
It was pivotal because that was the first time that in the transition of accepting the duality of both being called to preach and teach, and then also having this calling of pioneering love music. It was in that moment where I stepped into it fully. It was that brunch, and the response and the echo from the people, and the liberty in which from that point I moved forward. and I never looked back. That was the actual one that kind of
And I don't want
catapulted
people to think
everything
that. I
else.
just want to be clear for anybody that listening. Like,
Right.
I didn't tee that up. I
No,
didn't foster
I never.
that. I
We've never
didn't
talked about
say.
that.
We never talked about that.
No.
That's my
Nope.
first time ever hearing that, which
Yes.
is great for me to hear. But it's
Hmm.
also interesting too because here you've been doing music for most of your life
Absolutely.
and done music in Oklahoma. And at that
Absolutely.
time, you were living in Texas.
Hmm. Yes.
So I was trying to figure. I'm not. I was trying to figure this out, but I'm just curious. How is it that if you could talk to a person who is a musician or just person has aspirations and they've heard
Hmm.
all the things about pursuing a dream in Oklahoma and then leaving, coming back and forth,
Hmm.
like how was that for you? Like at what point did you just say, like, you know what, I might have to uproot myself and be played here, but I'm also coming back. When I come back, I feel like I probably get more love than I did when I was there. Like, what was that like for you?
So being there, and I moved to Dallas in 2013. Um, being there and I'll tell you because I was touring even out of Oklahoma City. So when I would go to other cities, um, and they love me at home, but when I go to other cities, it was then where I said to myself, Houston, matter of fact, Houston and DC and different places, and they were literally, you would have
Oh yeah,
thought
because you
that
performed at Miles J.
I did Miles
Remember
J,
Miles J
The
back in the
Office.
day?
I did Miles J, The Office, Cotton Exchange,
Yep.
and I'm serious. People were leaving the events that we were performing at, and then they would follow us to. It was nuts. But then to come back to Oklahoma City, after a while, kind of, it's like it kind of capped it a little bit.
Uh-oh. I lost him, but oh, there you
Okay, my
go.
bad. So in
There you back.
2013, when I moved, I knew I had maxed out. I did. I knew the call and response. I knew I had maxed out. So when I got to Dallas, it was the recipe. You know what I'm saying? The recipe. So it wasn't a hard transition, um, but definitely a transition that needed because it was a cap in Oklahoma City.
And do you feel like I think when we talk about people thrive in a small market like Oklahoma or Oklahoma City or Tulsa
I can't hear you.
that uh, um, can you hear me now? I think it's your audio. How about now? Can you hear me?
Yo
Can you hear
yo,
me? I think it's your audio on your side.
I can see you, but I can't hear you.
Mm, Give me 1 second. How about now?
Let me
I think you may have lost your
try
audio
this.
connection. Okay. I can hear you.
See you, but I can't hear you.
Okay. So give us 1 second and we'll be right back.
Anything. I can't hear a thing.
Okay. Can you hear me now? I'm not
I
sure.
can't hear you. I can see you.
Well,
Mm-mm. And I don't even have my AirPods in. I can't hear you.
Let's try one more thing.
No.
How about now? Well, while he's going to join back on the stream here in just a moment. So while he's getting back onto the stream, and there are a couple things that he talked about, and as we were getting ready to transition into of the experience of an entrepreneur in a small market going to a larger market, and we hear these conversations a lot where entrepreneurs are trying to find their space to work in. And so, how do you go from when you get this feeling or a sensation that where you are, you feel capped out, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're alienating a space. But how do you make the decision for yourself that maybe I need to expand my presence and brand? So he's back on, so we can get this conversation continue on. Can you hear me now?
I hear you. Yeah, I get
Okay,
it.
there we go. There we go. There we go.
There we go. All right.
Sometimes iPhones mess up on us, man.
Man, listen here. I'm trying to
so let's pick up where you were talking about in that you felt like you felt like you were capped and where you are, and then you moved to Dallas. So not moved to Dallas, but you were in Dallas, and the more you moved out into other spaces or other markets, people became more aware of you.
Right.
So go back to it and talk about that experience for you.
So the cap for me in Oklahoma City versus when I moved out is the culture had collapsed. So or capped. So when the culture caps, what you're trying to do can either hit a ceiling or you can push through that wall. In Dallas, it was open. So what I was bringing was able to be received and then built upon and expanded. You see what I'm saying? Because it was breeding ground for open. It was open for it, and the people were ready. You know what I mean? So now, almost 11 something years later, Oklahoma City is getting they've reached a place where they're open a little bit more, and so they're able to receive a little bit more. So when mindsets change, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, and I'm not originally from Oklahoma City, but I look at it from a place as just from a business perspective.
Yeah.
Because I want people to hear that this feedback is not from a critical place. I think after the past week of us, so we've got enough critical conversations. But from a business perspective, you have to look at it from I'm introducing something into the marketplace. And how do you introduce experiences into the marketplace? And so when you think about whether it's brunch or experiences or lifestyle experiences, in some markets it's fairly new, right? Where you may have, like for example in Dallas, there are more experiences in a more matured market, but it doesn't mean that Oklahoma City or smaller markets don't have value.
Correct.
How do you introduce? So from a business perspective, and I'm asking it that way, from a business perspective, how do you introduce your business into a place that's not familiar with you? And second part is, how do you then create the momentum of support in a new market?
Yeah. So I think that the way you present it, anything, in my opinion, when it's new, is you find out what they respond to. You find out what commonalities, what common grounds can you implement, or can your business feature that connects to that. And then the whole piece is about connection, because the moment that you connect your business or you find that common ground, then they get to meet you. They get to buy into you, the person. And then from that point, once they have bought into you and you've bought in, and they learn you, the person, then they'll draw. You can draw them on anything that you present to them. But it's about connecting to what commonality, common ground. When I was in Dallas, um, I used if musically I used 90s R&B and the lack thereof
Okay.
to connect to the people because I know that that's what everybody misses, common ground.
Okay.
So I implement that in every show. In fact, before I even start, most of the time I'll ask people how many of y'all miss 90s R&B.
Okay.
A lot of people don't even talk to their audiences. So that's Jeremy. So you see what I'm saying? I build a literal, when you come to a show, you feel like you're at a concert because I'm talking to you, I'm interacting with you, I'm live, same as you. You're in the mix all with the people. You're all in the kitchens with them. You know what I mean? To me, that's the way you get in and present.
So that to me, I'm trying to make these connections, right? So that call and response is often the style that you see in the Black church.
You better
Like,
believe it,
I don't
Bubba.
know of any Black Baptist church, especially the Holiness Pentecostal. I don't care, Black church, period.
Yes,
It's not
sir.
going to be quiet. There's going to be some call and response in the
Listen,
church.
listen. You better. I'm telling you that a part of me preaching and teaching and growing up in the church atmosphere is how I communicate and connect on a musical stage. If you've seen me lead worship, if you've seen me preach or teach or sing R&B, there is no variance. It's call response. It's just when I'm in the church, it's a different call and response. When I'm singing secular, different call and response, but it's the same formula.
So go back and think about some of the musical giants that
Hmm.
you can say these musical giants, whether people probably recognize them or not, or using that same type of like formula in their performances. But then when you listen to the music, you're like, wait a minute, you can tell that soulfulness came out of the church. Like, name some
Hmm.
people that you have are been influenced by, or just some of the give us some history lesson on some of the
Yeah,
musical giants that do that same thing that people may have not
sure.
realized.
Sure. I mean, all day long, James Brown. I mean, that's an icon for me. That's the person I studied, and I still study James Brown. James Brown, call and response all day long on the secular side. Um, Bobby Womack, Johnny Taylor. These are just different influences from an R&B perspective. Dave Hollister. Matter of fact, Jodeci. If you pay attention to Jodeci and how KC performs, it is call and response. It is church. You know what I'm saying? But these are the and if you don't know how to do that, then you're not really considered to be one of the greats. Charlie Wilson does it if don't nobody else do it. He's the front runner for doing it.
Okay, so all right, my mind's going somewhere. My mind's going somewhere. So
Hmm.
name the top three songs that either you would sing. No, name the top three songs that when they're played at brunch, that when the DJ stops, that you know that the audience is going to pick up the next part of that verse or that chorus. Name your top
Uh,
three.
my top. So DJ's playing it. I know they're gonna pick up "Yearning" by Gap Band. They're gonna pick up "Yearning" all day long. Call and response. Can we talk? Tevin Campbell.
Never Campbell.
Before I let go, Maze. They're gonna pick that one up. And when I'm performing, it goes. Oh man, we can go a while. Man's World is one that just that call and response. But as far as those automatics, Yearning. Before I let go, Can we talk? Automatic. Nobody's gonna be quiet.
Yeah, you can't leave out SWV now.
If SWV weak, you don't even have to do nothing but just play the I don't know, and then from that point
And
on,
let it
cut the
go. And let,
because it's
let
over.
it go.
They're gonna sing every
Yep,
piece of that song
yep, yep,
all day.
yep. Okay, so then when you're traveling around, you go into different restaurants and they say
Yeah.
um, this is their brunch,
Hmm.
and it's not there. Like, outside of the community, when you go to a brunch, and it's just
Hmm.
about food. It's just a menu, just food.
Hmm.
Does it change that dining experience when you're like they say it's brunch because what's going through your head? Are you able to enjoy that brunch when we're just so accustomed to a different style of brunch? Does the
No.
food taste the same? What is it like when this is what brunch is like for us, and like
Yeah.
I'm just here eating.
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, it's like eating um, certain people's potato salad. You just it looks good, and
Uh,
but no, that ain't the family recipe. And it's the same for brunch because we've connected them now.
yeah,
Music and food, they go hand in hand. So you can go. I've been to a couple where there's and it's just like, yeah, it was cool, but it didn't have all the elements, and so it's just
yeah,
like, yeah, I won't go back.
yeah. Now that's yeah, I feel the same way. Sometimes I have to tell myself that to be able to enjoy the experience, I have to not compare what I would like or accustomed to what's being
Right,
offered. And sometimes that's a bit of a struggle. So now being in Dallas,
right.
um, how has it been? Like what did you learn about now you've been in Dallas, established yourself
Mhm.
as one of the top people that people are looking for to perform at their Sunday brunches or just live music experience. What did you learn that you didn't expect being in a larger market like in the Dallas area? What did you not expect?
Um, I didn't expect for people to make brunch their highlight. Um, I didn't realize that there would be a market of people who just do brunch. They don't go to clubs because people in our 40s don't really club like that. Not I won't say people, but it's a wealth that just don't and don't go out. So brunch becoming their thing, their outlet, and they'll go Saturday and they'll go Sunday because I've seen them. I've done brunch on both days and repeat. So I didn't expect for the culture to almost be a brunch specific culture. Didn't expect to see that.
Okay, so it was a surprise to you that so you didn't expect there to be like I only go to brunch.
No.
Or people that wanted dining experiences that if it didn't involve live music and food that they didn't go.
Right. I didn't realize that. I always knew about the after five. And back 10 years ago, it was the happy hour, happy hour,
Happy
happy
hour.
hour.
Yep.
You know what I mean? That was the big drive.
Yep.
And and it went from happy hour to day party. But now it's day party, but now it's brunch.
Mhm.
And it's being connected like they're almost inseparable to the point where if your brunch doesn't include music, I mean it might go, but it won't be it's not gonna
Yeah,
be the
but how
one.
did you find who that person is? Like, I mean, I think that's is you have people who just enjoy brunch, but if you were to characterize that avatar, that customer, that clientele, like
Mhm.
who are the people that are brunch enthusiasts that like what would you say they are?
Yeah.
Like what would you say like age, range, interest, profile? Like how would you from a business place say, here is the
Ooh,
customer that goes to the brunch experience. This is who they are. Because then in turn, you're targeting those people in your business.
good question. I mean, man, now I'm seeing them as like I'm looking at your 27s. It's interesting. If you got a brunch between 27 and 35, most likely there's a DJ and something kind of that thing. But if it's 35 and up, or I'll say 35 and up, mostly that's live bands. And this is where the duality comes. This is how we tie it all together. The church folks are safe at brunch,
Okay.
so that's where they come.
Wait a minute.
And
Okay. Hold
y-
on.
y-
Wait. Wait a minute.
come on,
Here you go.
come
You wait
on.
a minute. So you mean to tell me that the church crowd, the Sunday church people, they
Yeah.
don't wear pantyhose and stockings no more, and the guys don't wear suspenders and all that no more.
No,
You mean to tell me that is the audience for Sunday brunch?
those are the folks because it's socially acceptable. It's hold up, there's a better word. It's socially safe
Okay.
because it's typically in a restaurant. It's not in a club, so they ain't got to feel the stigma, and
Okay.
they still get the music that they love because Christians love R&B music. In fact,
Mhm.
at the concerts, those are the Christians at the concerts. Well, now they get to merge the food with you see what I'm saying? So
Okay.
you have a wealth of people who are finally like, okay, now something for me. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So they
Okay.
kind of own brunch, that live music, that live atmosphere brunch. That's their spot, man.
All right. So that's interesting. That okay, the call and response, right? You're going
Hmm.
from being in the church. I'm gonna say black church. I'm
Hmm.
not saying you're not in like non-denominational. I'm not
Right,
saying that. The,
right.
the what we know as the black church, call and response, soulful type music. You're going from that. I can see it now. That atmosphere of a Sunday experience. From
Hmm.
there, it's just transitioning forward to Sunday brunch, where my brunch experience is restaurant dining, but I'm still getting a continuation of a spirited, soulful experience. I'm just extending my
Absolutely.
day.
Yeah, it's exactly what you're getting, and you're excited about it because, you know, and let me be more specific. And we're not talking about going from, like, say, for instance, Sunday morning church, you had a great time. Nobody wants to go from Sunday morning church, we done praised and worship to God, to go eat brunch and hear gospel music at brunch. No, you gotta have the blend of the two, the sweet and the
Okay.
spicy. You see what I'm saying?
Okay.
So yeah, it's the same spirited event. Why? Because just like you were singing your, Fred Hammonds, and you was calling out, same thing happens at brunch. You're singing Yearning, you're singing Can We Talk, you're singing Weak by SWV, and it's the same thing. And by 5 o'clock, you didn't kicked it hard in your opinion, and so your weekend's done. You know what I
Right.
mean? Back to it.
And I think that's interesting that when you look at the overlap of experiences, and let's from a business place, like from a
Right.
place of business, that there's an overlap between an audience that is religious, faith-based, spiritual, and then
Hmm.
there's similarity and characteristics to an audience that wouldn't typically be characterized as spiritual or faith-based,
Hmm.
but it makes sense. It's safer to have that experience on Sunday in a restaurant versus if I went to a lounge,
Correct.
right? Okay, all right. So when you if you look thinking about as your as you've gone in
Hmm.
music,
Hmm.
and I just know that you have a passion in ministry and you teach and you preach.
Yes.
So how I want to go back into talking about the role of duality and preaching and teaching and ministry to being
Hmm.
in music and what the church would call secular spaces.
Right.
How do you, as a person, how do you navigate that um, confidently?
Hmm.
Because there are some people who are like they feel conflicted. They have a passion
Sure.
for both, or they see an opportunity, and they're trying to navigate it. But how do you maintain your confidence
Hmm.
of I'm gonna be here and I'm gonna be
Yeah.
here, but I'm doing it with purpose and intention.
Yeah, and great question. Just understanding, man. Um, what keeps me grounded is I make sure, and I try to make sure that whatever I do, whatever songs I'm performing and however atmosphere I create, that it's still in alignment with what I preach and teach from the scriptures. You know what I mean? Like, you won't catch me with my shirt off or nothing crazy. You're not gonna ever catch me drunk or anything. I'm never gonna be out there like that. But understanding that when you go, God goes, because He's in you, and the kingdom is to be mobile, right? Because Jesus was mobile. And that understanding that the Messiah works his first miracle at a wedding celebration, not a wedding, religious wedding, a celebration, that lets us know that let me know that I'm safe, and just staying in that lane. That's where it is.
I'll push back on that because I want somebody that's listening and how they're going to interpret that is it's but in the religious space
Hmm.
is that's not where you're supposed to go. right? You're not
Right.
supposed to be um, this person around a certain crowd. You're not supposed to go places where there's alcohol and secular music and
Right.
yeah, where all the temptations are, right?
Right.
You're not
Right.
supposed to do that.
Right.
That's religion.
Correct.
So then how do you counter that if someone says like, I ain't follow that because, this man is a preacher 5, 6 days a week and he's over here. So how would you
Mhm.
then help communicate to a person who may not be as knowledgeable in Bible scriptures or teaching to help them see the work that you're doing is it's not just about food and music. It actually
Right.
is an
Right.
evangelism. It is ministry. How do you explain that to a person?
Well, I would, if they're presenting that argument or that perspective, I respect it. And as you mature in the faith, you understand that it's not about arguing, because if eating meat offends you, then, and if it's sin to you to eat meat, don't eat it,
Right.
because that offends your consciousness. But for me, I don't argue it. You know what I'm saying? I understand it and I respect that, but I don't try to argue or battle that, because I know what I'm graced to do.
Mhm.
Um, when it comes down to perspective, I do know this, that we as Christians were never meant to just, we were meant to encourage Christians, but we're not trying to reach Christians. And our work is out there. Our work is everywhere.
Mhm.
And when we deem a place you shouldn't go, that's like telling light not to shine everywhere.
Mm. Okay.
You see what I'm saying? So I just don't. As a matter of fact, it's funny because when Jesus was presented with that, he says something along the lines. He says, "It's not the sick, it's not the well who needs a physician, but it's the sick." And he goes into this discourse about who needs light. And the thing that keeps me, and this last thing I'm saying, the thing that keeps me so grounded is what people don't know, is that I have brought more people to Christ. I have kept people from committing suicide, um, saved marriages, all in the club, more than I have in my own church.
Wow.
That is a fact in the
So
building.
okay, and that's what's amazing about what you said is it's really disruptive. So
Hmm.
going beyond the space of in the religious and church environment is that the impactful work that you do is going to be in places where people need it the most.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
do you think do you think entrepreneurs often may, I don't know, just from your perspective, do you think entrepreneurs choose hobbies or businesses where they feel like they can make the most money, or do you feel like they just have a hard time navigating at the place where they're going to make the most impact?
I think that if I'm being honest, when most people start a business, I think it's financial, to make money. You know what I mean? And I get it, but for the ones who want to make an impact over just money, then that's a whole different mentality, a whole different mindset. Because the difference between the two is when you are in the business of making an impact, then that the money is not the drive, and so you're not limited. And so that's the matter of fact. I say people who are free are the ones who are in business to make an impact.
Okay, so I'm trying to find out what my impact is. I think that what I have is going to make an impact. So if
Hmm.
you would, when you define like what impact is in the work that you do, in the
Hmm.
combination of music and okay, so when you are trying to figure out what you want to explore in business, what
Hmm.
are some things that you consider when creating a concept or a campaign or just doing work that's impactful? What's important to you in making impact?
Um, how does it connect? How whatever business I'm doing, how does it connect to the core of who I am? of what I stand for. What how because eventually I'm coming through.
Mhm.
In other words, what I'm saying is everything that God gives each and every one of us, be it a business, be it a great name, be it, it's just bait.
Mhm.
It's just bait. Like, and so I always think of what is it whatever I'm going to do, how can I connect that to my core, and where my influence comes? Because the facts are, God gave Jesus the ability and the power to do miracles to draw in the unbeliever. That was only bait to bring them into the kingdom so they can get this teaching. So with you,
Right.
with bigger than food and everything, it's just baiting to bring them in to the leadership, to the other pieces of who you are. So for me, if I'm considering business, whatever idea I'm considering, I'm have to consider my core values of what I'm trying to bring behind it. That's
Yeah,
what I think
I
of.
think people, when you start to talk about like impact, and if you look at what a community needs,
Yeah,
whether it's
yeah,
housing, it's
yeah.
food, resources for healthcare, the opportunity to make money, to
Mhm,
be in an environment where your innovation is cultivated and harnessed and
mhm.
produce all those things. That's the hard road. That's a that's a hard road to go.
Yes, sir.
So as you're pursuing things that are impactful, your relationships are very important along that
Mhm.
way.
Yes,
People
sir.
that are going to encourage you, keep you accountable.
Yes, sir.
And how have you been able to find relationships that nurture your need, your desire, your purpose of impact in a whole new market? I mean, you moved to Dallas in, 11 years ago or so. How did you find the people? How did you find your people in a new
Mm.
place?
Well, that's a great question too, man. I love the way you phrased it. Finding your people in a new place. Um, Principles, my core values. My principles, my core values of what I stand on is what has connected me to the people I still stand with. Because when you have whatever your principles are, whatever your core is, doesn't matter who you meet. If the principles and foundations are not the same, eventually y'all are going to separate. So I didn't find my people, my principles did. And so I've had the same crew of guys for the last 6 years now, based on principle and creed and core values to this very day. That's how I found my people.
Well, go deeper than that, because I think it's one thing to to talk about the principles and creeds you found, but
Mhm.
in those moments where maybe you didn't make the right decision, or maybe you were or battling with a
Right.
decision to make in business or personal life, but why was that group important to you? Like,
Right.
what does that mean to you in those moments where I got to make a difficult decision? Or, you know what? That's not the question. Why is it important to have people in your circle like that when they see you might be making a decision that is against your principles and creed, but maybe
Yeah.
you didn't see it?
Yeah. Because that's a lifeline. And aside from the guys that I have now, I have a team of pastors, um, that I've had for, oh man, 8 or 9 years, that helped me along the way with big decisions or small decisions or hard decisions. And so they helped me keep me grounded on that end. And so it's important now with the guys that I've connected with even here, because you're not gonna get it right all the time. And to be honest with you, you're not gonna listen, but all the time. But it's the honesty and the transparency that we have that has kept me, and that's what keeps me going. And honestly, that's why it's important, because you're not gonna see everything. You just not.
That's true. That's true. And having those people around you give you a different perspective,
Oh
and especially
yeah,
people that you found that you can trust, that you can
yeah,
be vulnerable with at times. Because as men, a lot of times we keep things close to our chest because vulnerability isn't always received in the way that we
yeah,
um, want to be vulnerable and communicating what we need and desire. So having that space, whether it consists of whether it's men, women, or whatever, like finding your people that you can be open
Mm.
with to
Hmm.
help you make the right decision, or folks that can pull you. Hey man, you
Yeah.
just checking on you because it seems like you're kind of going in a direction that seems against your principles, your values, and your creed of what they know you to be. It's always a
Yeah.
beautiful space to be in. And got one final question before we wrap up this episode of the podcast.
Hmm.
Um, what what do you expect of yourself?
Um, honestly, just not quit. I mean, and that sounds probably just as generic, but I expect to drop the ball sometime. I expect not to get everything right. I expect to win. I expect to to be great and to what I'm saying, to finish strong in terms of music and ministry and all that. But what I really put the expectation I have of myself is don't quit. Period. Just don't quit, dog.
Okay, so I'm this is the last question because I had another follow up after you said don't quit. Someone's watching or someone's listening,
Hmm.
and they are probably at that moment of making that decision to hang it up. In whatever context hang it up means,
Hmm.
but they feel like they've exhausted themselves and they feel like the best decision in this moment of
Hmm.
maybe they're experiencing disappointment, not enough resource, not enough money, not feeling supported, feeling isolated, all those feelings you get before you deciding of I'm considering quitting.
Mm.
If I'm talking to you, if I'm in front
Yeah.
of you and now you know this, how
Mm.
would you encourage them to not quit?
I would say you can't quit because you're more prepared than you think.
Okay.
It's easy to overlook all the preparation that you've been through, but you cannot quit because you're more prepared than you think. I'll prove it. Because I'm going to ask you all the feelings you feel right now. You're telling me that you have messed up. You're telling me that you dropped the ball or you just don't know, you're confused. You're telling me that you've actually had some moments where you've gone against the grain and you've had some, well, that's the stuff that's prepared you. That's the preparation. And because of that preparation, you're more prepared than you think because great success comes as a result of in preparation and determination. So you just got to keep going because you're more prepared than you think. You're just tired.
Yep. And that goes back to, just the environment that you're in, in those moments where you're
Yeah,
tired or you feel like you want to quit, you've exhausted it all. When you're in an environment that can uplift you but hold you accountable, that can
right.
be supportive of you, that when you don't have the energy, they can lift you up as well. Your environment is very important. So if you
Yeah.
don't have those people that you can say, I'm tired, or I need help, or you're not allowed to be vulnerable, you might miss that chance to someone to say, you've done all of this work, you've had all of these experiences you overcome that are
Right.
preparing you for the amazing thing that you're going to do. You'll miss
Yes.
that because you're lacking that environment or space to be in. I'm a big proponent of finding your people, finding the people that can
Mm.
pour into you in those times where you can't pour yourself. I heard somebody here say something this profound for me recently. It said, you find your friends when you're at the top. You don't find your friends when you're in the valley.
Mm.
Because if I'm with people that can help me when I'm at my high moments, I'm finding them because we lost them again. Up to that
Mm.
iPhone,
Okay.
get you, boy. iPhone, get you,
Man,
boy.
look him. Look him.
But think about it. When you're climbing a mountain and you're at a higher altitude, the
Hmm.
air is thin.
Hmm.
And you have to have a different lung capacity when the air is thin.
Mm.
When you were going down the mountain, there's more oxygen. So your lungs have to work less. So
Mm.
the people at the higher altitudes can operate better because they have a greater lung capacity as the altitudes change, go high and low.
Mm.
and the people that have higher lung capacity can handle it when things are tough. I'm in this thing. I'm working with coffee right now, and so what I learned recently is that coffee beans in a higher altitude require more heat. So the higher
Okay.
heat they have to roast is called the first crack. You hear a popping sound like popcorn.
Hmm.
So when that moment happens at 400 plus degrees in a roaster, now you know you're in the process of it's cracked, the moisture comes out, the color change, and the color changing. Now you have a chance to have great coffee. But if you are in environments where there's a lack of capacity,
Hmm.
when it's time to climb, they don't have the capacity
Hmm.
because they haven't experienced the highs and the lows.
That's good.
They lack the skill and capacity.
Mm.
So when I reference being at the top, I'm not saying in relative to top in success,
Mm.
but the people who've gotten to the top have gotten more capacity.
Mm.
Not
That's
about the
good.
success, it's I got more capacity.
That's good.
So your environment, different people, different skills with more capacity is going to bring you great value when I got to climb a bigger one. But to climb a bigger one, I got to come off that one and I got to go up to another.
Wow, that's good. That's good.
So Albert, we gonna close it out there, man. I can't forget. I
Okay.
definitely appreciate
Yeah.
you coming on
Thank you
to
for
this
having me, man. I appreciate you.
to this episode 15 of the Bigger Than Food podcast. And
Yes,
love the
sir.
work that you're doing in Dallas. I love being
Thank
able
you.
to have a front row seat of seeing you navigate and
Thank you.
overcome and minister and refine your passion and skills and seeing you taking over that Sunday brunch scene in Dallas, man. It's beautiful to see, man.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it, man. And again, likewise to you, doing just what you say, bigger than food, bigger. I can appreciate the work, and you know this. Down through the years, you can always count on every now and again. I'm going to shoot you something to let you know to keep going. Whether it's hey, I'm proud of you, da, 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 or a word of some sort. And man, just like I said, just keep going, man. You're a gift, and I just pray that the environment and the culture respects it and receives it as such.
Man, I appreciate it, man. So,
Yes,
y'all, we're
sir.
going to wrap up this episode of the Bigger Than Food podcast. This is episode 15 with my cousin, actually,
Yes,
my
sir.
blood cousin, my
Blood,
family
blood.
from Duncan, Oklahoma, here in
Yes,
Stevens
sir.
County. So, thank y'all for tuning in for this episode. We'll see you next week with another amazing guest on the Bigger Than Food podcast. So, do us a favor, like this on the channel that you're watching it on, and also go to our YouTube channel and subscribe so that way you'll get the updates and notifications of our next episode. And until then, we'll see you next time on the Bigger Than Food podcast, where our mission
Yes, sir.
is bigger than food.